So the first magazine we're looking at up is Empire. I managed to pick this one up in a W.H. Smith's, which again shows the point that it's a mainstream magazine. So you can find it in most places. Whereas Sight and Sound, I had to look, I looked forever and I still couldn't find it, so I had to get it through college. Empire, I know, for example, 3 or 4 shops in my area which all stock this magazine, so it shows that it is more of a mainstream magazine and not for the niche audience, just film lovers in general. So whereas other magazines look at film critics and people like that, and Doctor of Film and stuff like that. This actually just focuses on mainly the idea of people who enjoy watching films, maybe people who have a lot of, like, some, I don't know if they go to the cinema a lot, or sometimes I know someone who subscribes to this magazine and he works at a cinema, so he likes film a little bit. He doesn't know massive about theory of film and stuff like that, but he likes the idea of film. He loves working in cinema and stuff. So that's one of the main aspects of this. Really, it's not aimed for film, like doctors of film and stuff, but it's aimed at the people who enjoy it. So that's the first point. Obviously I'll go, like I did in the previous video for Sight and Sound, I'll go through the magazine and then break down each page in the categories that I found. So when you turn the page, the first thing you see is this massive widespread advert. Again, advertising quite a big film. I know in comparison to the film they was advertising in Sight and Sound, this one's a lot. It's a massive advert. It's quite a big popular film coming out soon, and it's shouting the idea that it's in the IMAX as well. So that's just a small little thing to look out for. I will do a separate video looking at all the adverts within these two magazines to compare the two types of adverts, because I know that has a lot to do with the demographic and other stuff. So I will do a video on that. So if we turn to the contents page, it's again different to the Sight and Sound. There's a lot of photos and stuff. I know on Sight and Sound it just had the one photo of the feature, so it has a lot of that. And I know it has most of the photos are based on the feature, but there are some which aren't based, like aren't linked with the feature. So I think that's again more images changes the style of the magazine. Having a close look at the categories, you've got 3 different categories there. So it talks about the preview, the on-screen, and the review. Again, it breaks out similar to what Sight and Sound did, but Sight and Sound probably went a little bit, well, I know they went a little bit more in depth when it came to like the on-screen, and then they talked about home cinema and stuff like that. So again, it's a little bit different. It doesn't show as much as, well, it doesn't show much technical stuff as Sight and Sound does. So looking further into the magazine, we can see after flicking a few pages, it advertises the feature. So this, again, I think at the beginning of Sight and Sound it did talk a little bit about the feature, but I think that was more in the contents page. Yeah, I'm just checking now, yeah it is. So with this and Empire, it's focusing much more on that feature, and that's the whole selling point of the magazine. All the front covers are based on it. If you look at the front covers, I think I put a post up about this. Basically, all the front covers, they were all specific to Spielberg films. There was 5 different front covers you could have got in the newsagents. Another thing to add is if we look at the bottom of that page, we can see this subscribe to Empire sign. So only 3 pages in, and it's talking about subscribing to the issue and stuff. So that's something that we will come back to, but we will compare the 2 subscribing pages and how they differ between the 2 magazines. So once you turn the page, you'll find the preview section, and this talks about films in general. So it's got a few films that have newly been released. It's also got a few films that are still yet to be released. For example, during this section, I think the page previous to this, it talks about a preview of Red Sparrow, which is kind of, there's a link there between the massive double spread advert to them reviewing it in the magazine. So there's probably something going on there with the 2 corporates. But away from that, one thing that did surprise me is at the bottom you can see that it's talking about movie maths, and again that sounds quite like mainstream and stuff like that. But when you look into it, they're talking about a film called 400 Blows, which is a very it's a French New Wave film. I think directed by Truffaut. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked that up, but I think it's directed by Truffaut. And it was during the French New Wave period, and a lot of critics and Doctor of Films do look at this film and analyse this film. So for them to mention it is a bit of an anomaly. It's a bit surprising to see it in a mainstream magazine, but as we carry on looking through it, I'm sure we'll find different things and compare the 2. So as we turn the page, we find this little mini feature called The Money Shot. This is still in the preview section, and basically it's talking about shots within trailers. So again, it is thinking how powerful shots can be, so it's giving some critical analysis to films, but it's again doing Star Wars, which is a mainstream big blockbuster hit. Whereas I've looked in Sight and Sound and they've got something similar which compares the shots, and in that they've used some independent short film. I think it was I can't remember the name now, but it was some independent short film that was a very good film actually. I've watched it previous, but again that shows the difference between the two and their audience. So once we go through the magazine, we can get to the on-screen bit. I think yeah, this is the on-screen bit. We can start to see some reviews of films. So basically here you've got a double page spread review, and basically this is what we need to do anyway. So this is a really good picture for us because, well, for me, yes, because I can go through this now and try and pick out all the different mini things that are within the scenes and the ratings and how they do the ratings and what sort of information and how they word things. So that's great. I can do that. This is a film saying You Were Never Really Here. This is not a massive film, but it's big enough to be known. And I know this, comparing it to what Sight and Sound were looking at. Sight and Sound were looking at a few big films, but this one mainly looked at Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, and everything like that. So that basically is just the comparison there, really. So after the on-screen bit, it goes straight into the feature, which is a massive feature. Sorry, massive feature on Spielberg. So there's comparing the two features. I know the other one looked at Wes Anderson, and this one now looks at Spielberg. They are completely different directors, as I said in the previous video. So it kind of shows that Spielberg is a massive person, whereas Wes Anderson is more of an artsy sort of film director, auteur, sort of that sort of idea of film. If we look into the actual feature itself, you can see that it's not. It talks about some really good techniques that's used, and it talks about some great writing techniques that Spielberg's used, and some great directing techniques and stuff like that. But it doesn't go massively in depth. For example, here's a page about Jaws, and this talks a little bit about the technique of them recording the film, but it's more talks about what it did to people when they watched the media, and how people reacted to the film. So it's more audience reactions and stuff like that. So it's useful. Another interesting thing is the feature in this magazine, I think, was about 60 to 70 pages long. In the Sight and Sound, it was about, I think, between 10 and 15 pages, and the comparisons I did. So that's something to take into consideration, that it kind of describes the audience with how big the feature is. I know they're two different people, and Spielberg's massive, but still, it shows the difference between the magazines. One last thing I really liked was this time frame thing they do at the back of each issue. And basically they pick a film this month, sorry, it was Thor Ragnarok, and they go through different scenes within that film and break them down and pause them and give them time frames and synopsises. So I really like that feature, and I think it's quite a QWERTY sort of thing. And if you want to look at the film but you don't want to go watch it, then it can kind of give you an insight, which is great. Right, that's basically everything in the magazine. I will do a video comparing the adverts for the magazine, so I'll upload that. And thank you for watching.